Our content for today will be 4 skills of coaching: to be present in a conversation, to listen, to ask powerful questions, and to construct a direct communication. I think, as Andrea's friend think, they are same skills to be practiced in the same way, both in coaching and in mediation. But before starting this, I will ask you about your perceptions on those 4 skills, and then we will have 2 different surveys and some videos about the skills, and then we will finalize with an open discussion. If you have any questions about the content and other things, you can ask, or I can start. Okay, I go. Let's start with your perception. Okay, here I show you a picture which has a wooden object in the center of the photograph. That wooden object, for the purposes of our session today, symbolizes the actual skills that I have mentioned a few minutes ago. To be present in a conversation, to listen, to ask questions, and to construct direct communication. And the shadows around it on the walls symbolizes your perception on the level of your skills. And what we try to do in this session is try to understand the difference and the distance between the shadows and the objects. And to do this, I will ask you 4 questions. Not only in coaching or mediating, in your daily life, when you talk to a person, are you 100% present in the conversation? Not distracted, not with a mind wandering around, not thinking what to wear next day, what to say to your boss, what to do with your child. Are you 100% present in the conversation? Are you a good listener? Do you ask good questions? And do you communicate effectively? In your perception, what would you answer to those questions? Let's start. As I said, we will talk about 4 skills today. One of them is to be present. The other one is to listen properly and then asking questions and to construct direct communication. And I will start from listening. Okay. We all know that, let me start by saying this. According to a scientific research, we speak 125 words per minute. And we have a brain capacity that is able to process 500 words per minute, which leaves us approximately 375 pieces of information per minute. And this we most of the time use for thinking about our agenda when we listening to the person. Let's imagine that we have a friend who thinks that he or she is in a risk of losing a job, getting fired. And when we listen to that person, sometimes we get lost in our own agenda. Like, what would I have done if I lost my job? Or, for example, if you had an experience of losing a job a few years ago, few months ago, you think about how a hard experience that was to pay your bills and look after your child and have your normal life to continue. And we get lost in our agenda, and that's really hard. It makes it really hard to listen to the person who is speaking with us. And as coaches and as mediators, we know that it is not a specific and nice way to listen to a person, and we try to listen to the person with the speaker's agenda, which means like thinking to the same colleague or friend who is in danger of losing a job, thinking about what are the circumstances this person is in, what would this person will do if he or she will really lose the job, what kind of measures should that person take in order not to lose that job? What kind of circumstances may be created if that happens? And we get ourselves into the agenda of the speaker. And it's really nice because it opens lots of cameras and lots of options to our conversation. But we can do even more. We can also listen to the onset, which sounds a little weird when first said. What is listening to the onset? As I said, we have a capacity to process 500 pieces of information per minute, but we can speak only 125 words per minute. So we have an extra capacity that we can use in a conversation, but what can we do? We can listen with the speaker's agenda, but still we have extra capacity and we can use it. So we need some area to put our capacity in, and we have that area. It's amazing to see when we listen what is being said, which means the words that the speaker used, and also why that person uses those words and sentences. This question of why creates a big window to understand the situation of the speaker, because nobody talks about anything for no reason. We always have some reasons. Imagine that our friend who is in danger of losing a job is not talking about measures or precautions or plans to not lose the job or to do if the job is lost. Instead, that person talks about the relations with his or her family. That's weird. I may think, why would you think on this issue instead of thinking about plan B, plan C? Why? Because there must be a reason. Maybe he or she thinks that losing a job may embarrass the parents, or maybe some other reason. But listening to what's said in addition to why is being said opens a big new area to really understand the message. And how to do it is really simple. Stay curious. We love to be curious as mediators and coaches, because it is one of the most useful skills we have. We have troubles with judging and assuming because it's a huge habit that we have since we have, born and have a childhood and go into an adulthood, until we started to practice those professions like mediation and coaching. But until then, we have a huge practice on making judgments and assumptions, and they really save our lives in lots of aspects that we will talk in a few minutes later. But it doesn't help when listening to a person and really understanding the situation of that person, the movie of that person that he's leading. So staying curious is one of our tools to listen to the unsaid, why people said that. And actually, it's really simple. We just don't interrupt and observe. Observing a person is really different than our usual skills. Observing the body language, the gestures, the tones of a person is observing the whole mediums of an emotion to reveal out. We can understand thoughts of a person only by words, because scientifically speaking, as far as I know, there are no biological tools that we have in order to understand thoughts of a person. It's impossible. But emotions, they are totally different. We understand them by the words of the speaker, by the gestures, by the body language, by the tone, and everything. You know, the presence of the speaker tells us the emotions of the speaker. So it doesn't only require the listening, the ear part of our body, which gives us information only about words, but it requires more observation. So listening with the agenda of the speaker requires only our ear and listening skills, but listening the unsaid requires something more. Okay, now what I have explained so far is not completed, because listening to a person requires something more. As I said before, it requires presence of a two-person, sending a message of I am here for you. So what I have told so far will be completed after I'm done with the presence topic. So I am here for you is a strong message to transfer to the speaker, but how do we do this while we have lots of values and rules and categories of thinking in our lives? You know, for example, let's go back to the same imaginary incident with our colleague who is in danger of risking of a job. And imagine that we have a strong value in life of success. We spend a lot of time in our work to get even more successful and do new projects and reach to new successful positions and etc. It's really important for us, a strong value of ourselves. And imagine that our friend who is complaining about the risk of losing a job just spent whole summer in the beach and now complaining about not being able to reach the sales limit of the company requested from her. In that circumstances, would I think, okay, you have just spent whole summer in the beach and now you're complaining about not being able to reach the limits of sales? You should have done better, you could have done better, and you didn't want to do. So why are you complaining right now? Our values are distracting our listening and our presence, because these are the filters in our lives to reach to the presence of other person. So it's tricky, it's hard to have our values that we have built up so far since we were born, since our childhood and all the adulthood life so far, probably 30 years or 40 years of experience, we have constructed our values and rules properly. And then they became our filters to understand the other person. So how can we be there for the other person without any filter? Thankfully, we have a good theory for that. As someone said before, a good theory is the most practical thing in the world. So our theory for today will be by Eric Berne, who says we need 3 assumptions in the world. Everyone is okay, being the first one. In here, okay means everyone is important, valuable, meaningful, and reliable. Now, let me ask you, do you think that at least one person on the world who may not be valuable, important, reliable, and meaningful, do you think that at least one person exists like that who is not okay? If you think, yes, there should be at least one person who is not reliable, important, value, and meaningful, then it means that this person may someday come to your meeting when you act as a mediator or a coach. And in that case, what would our filters will do to us? Can we think that this person has a capacity to think properly or decide properly? How can we assume that? And in order to do that, I will invite you to do some extra practice. Now, I'm showing you a list of many values in our lives. Okay. Now, let's do a practice together. Please read those values and pick 10 of them that you think are important for your life. Okay, it seems that love is important for this group, I may say. Kindness and balance seems to be in bigger font, which means more people wrote kindness and balance, faith and honesty. Okay, thank you. 15 people already answered. Okay, now I have a claim. If I ask to the people who answered love is a great and important value in life and ask them to define what love is, they will give us different answers about what love is really about. We all have different values in our lives. Not that only, we all have different combinations of values in our lives, and we have different definitions for each value in our lives. Which brings us to the point, like, we all have different fingerprints in our values, in our style of living, in our, sense of living, in our understanding of living, and we are each individually different person. And it's really hard to understand each other. When I say, I love you, Andrea, I'm not sure whether she understands the love that I'm meaning to her. Probably I'm saying for different purposes and she is understanding me with different purposes. It's really hard to communicate with the words. So presence is really important. We have only 2 more. And actually, having a full presence and ability to listen really creates a comfortable space to ask good questions and construct a direct communication. When we do that, the most powerful question on earth is the question that comes to the tip of our tongue. Not filtered with our values, for example, respect in my case, and not lost in the agenda of myself, and not lost the extra information of 375 pieces that I could get from the speaker. It's just the tip of my tongue. There is no simple formula to talk about that. It's just what comes to the tip of your tongue. And besides that, it's only technical information. It's better to have open-ended questions, but it's not a rule. Sometimes you ask very close-ended questions, but in the spirit of that conversation, it has the effect of the most open-ended question on earth. So it's just a purpose. It is best to have clear, simple and short, and once at a time questions. Okay, we have only one thing to talk about, which is the question asked by Wendy. Constructing a direct communication. From now on, it's just a matter of sincerity, but the intimacy degree is really helpful, which requires, of course, again, a clear, simple, short, and sincere wording in ourselves. So I want to finalize with an invitation. In order to practice those kind of skills, we need an habit, right? I invite you to work on your 3 values that you picked today. Why do you think they are important to you? Since when they become important to you? Who put those values into you? Your parents? Do you still carry them since you were 5 years old? Are they still, powerful in your life? Do they make any sense to you? Listen to a person no matter what. pick a person in your life. For example, your husband, your wife, your child, your neighbor, your friend, your mother, I don't know, someone. Pick someone and put a rule. You will listen to that person no matter what, according to all the principles that we talk in this webinar. You can put rules if you want. For example, if you picked your husband or wife, it's not possible to listen all the time. So you can say, I will listen to you after 11 p.m. every day. But when you make that rule, after 11 p.m. every day, you have to listen to your husband or wife, okay? If you make up the rule, you have to stick with it. And then ask 3 curious questions every day. If I were you, I would do that practice with the person who I will listen and communicate with the sentences clear and simple as I have just described. And again, I would do that with the same person I told myself that I would listen.